You know, there comes a time when I watch a horror film and I kind of go in cold on it, thinking that it's just going to be another Blumhouse film. I didn't want to. I don't want to automatically assume that everything Blumhouse is bad because I did get in that way for a time when they basically owned the horror industry, and pretty much every film that they came out with was a demon possession film, a slasher horror film that wasn't very great, a la the sequels to the halfway decent 2018 Halloween reboot. When I hear Blumhouse is involved in a film, it's pretty much an automatic point off or two. And I don't really want to be like that, but they pretty much kind of had that feeling where they owned the horror industry for about 10 years. It would seem like the only thing that came out to theaters was a Blumhouse film, and every single one of them was the exact same way. Trite, cliche, PG-13, and if it was rated R, it was barely halfway decent. In this film today, I'm not going to lie, for the first time in a while, going in cold definitely helped with my feelings and projections of this film. Now, this movie was not expensive to make. Apparently, it was only made for less than $1 million or equal to, and it's already made its money back. So it seems like we have another Insidious thing going on. But unlike with Insidious, with the creature being clearly a demon, with this particular picture, they really don't explain exactly what it is. I mean, yes, it is magic. That is a given. It's Blumhouse. They typically always go for the magic, the demon, or the spell, or some incantation. But for quite some time in this movie, I genuinely felt that it might have been at least an allegory for maybe mental illness of some kind with a relationship stat drama, with relationship statuses that might have a negative impact after a time. Love seeming potent at first, that's pure and undying, can quickly turn in from something very, very good to something extremely toxic. I'm not going to lie. This movie had me in stitches, like pretty much from like as soon as the weird stuff started. Initially, I thought this film was PG-13 until they started swearing and dropping the F-bomb a bunch of times. And I went, okay, they've exceeded the 2 limit for the PG-13 rating. And then I went, okay, this is R. They can do more mature things. And lo and behold, as soon as we get to this fantastical aspect, as soon as we got to the fantastical aspect, the film just kicks it right in overdrive. I mean, if the film took any longer, I think I might have started to lose. It would have started to lose me a little bit, but because it didn't, and as soon as it kept going, it never really stopped. It just kept getting worse and worse. It kind of reminded me, once again, reminding myself of another film, it was kind of like Fatal Attraction from the 90s, where it starts off as love and lust, and unlike in that film where it's, kind of, it's consensual, but then it kind of becomes unconsensual, it's kind of similar here because the dude initially thinks this is what he wants. It's then, lo and behold, you get exactly what you want, but through poor wording or just generally not knowing what you're wishing for, because the idea that love, something that's so complex and infinite in its variations and setup and how quickly it is to easily destroy, this dude clearly doesn't realize what he's doing. Effectively, he is rewriting this girl's personality completely, almost giving her, and as I said, if you made like 2 changes to the script, you could pretty much make this about mental illness, split personality like DID, or abusive relationships, because the guy clearly could have said something earlier, but he kind of chooses not to. And that's kind of like almost like a djinn instead of a genie, because djinns pretty much take your wish and then they twist it into some form that you don't want. And yeah, you can make someone love you. Love needs to be pure. And from this pureness will spawn a really passionate flame. But the problem is that he just takes a blowtorch and skips all the steps because this guy's got no game. He has the chance to say what he wants, but he refuses to say something. But then from that point on, he effectively just kind of goes all out the window. He doesn't have any game, but he doesn't mean anything bad by it initially, but the way he handles the situation is kind of questionable at times, and it kind of feels maybe if he takes certain precautions, it might have not have ended the way that it did. But the problem is that when he is given the chance, when somebody makes a wish for something that is pure like love, the problem is it has to be consensual. Wishing for something that's this complicated as love, lust is easy. Love is infinitely complex. So you cannot really just wish for something this complex to just come into an existence. And inadvertently, because it's not mutually consensual, it almost kind of starts to drive her up a wall. And whether or not, even if it was mental illness, or if it was something like, even if it wasn't magic, which it kind of is, because in the trailer they show you that it is clearly the stick thing that makes it happen. But for a time, I was wondering maybe they would actually go the mental route, kind of like this movie felt like it was a mixture of Smiles. Everyone else thinks she's just going crazy, but there's this demon after her, and then it ends in a very kind of horrible way. Whereas with this one, I felt like they kind of seen the cliches and the standardization of these kind of film scripts, and they tried their best to make it much more character driven. It wasn't, the scares are not so much scares. It's this awkward feeling of being at a party with somebody that you know is mentally questionable, and they're gonna set off themselves, they're gonna make an ass of themselves, and you're gonna be the one that brought them to the party, and you genuinely have to just experience and deal with the situation at hand and the resounding after effects of this kind of thing. The two mains are fantastic, and even like the supporting cast, I mean, everyone comes to work. There's no one who just feels like they're here for a paycheck for 2 minutes, and then they go and hop off. And everything that happens, every act, I mean, could they have had the speakers turned up any louder? I don't think they could have. I think that my theater speakers were about ready to blow out because they were freaking rattling. And I've seen several big giant films on these. Not a single one of these films that I went and seen that were these big budget action films or science fiction films have ever been as loud as this movie. So if you got sensitive ears, I would suggest you hold off for this film because every theater and several reviewers have already said something about this. As far as the film's concerned, it is a rated R kind of mythical film. It's very character driven. It's kind of slow at the beginning, but that's perfectly fine. We got to get to know the characters, because if we don't care about our characters' trauma, then obviously we don't understand them, and therefore we don't care when things start to go awry. Now, the fact that this film does go against type with the Blumhouse kind of blueprint, and it's much more character driven, and it's much less about the mythical and more about the characters within the story itself, I do vastly appreciate that. However, the film is for the lowness of its budget, it kind of reminded me of It Follows a little bit. They use a lot of mood lighting, it's a lot of natural lighting. There's a little bit of stage lighting and such like that, and the sound editing is pretty good. Like a lot of loud booms, everything's cranked up to max to emphasize the creepiness of a situation and the surroundings. The best thing was the acting by far, and the directing was very, very competent. It was leagues above your typical Blumhouse crapfest. Now, as far as giving it like a grade, I would say if you're into these kind of films where you like not really so much gore fests, but there's a little bit of gore in here, don't get me wrong, but primarily it is a lot of tension. It is not fear. It's very Hitchcock like that, where it's about the anticipation of not so much a jump scare, but you're waiting for something to happen, and then when it finally does happen, it goes click, and you go, wow, that actually really made me feel a measure of unease. They do that several times throughout the movie. Some are more subtle than others. Others are right in your face. Others are in the back of the room and all that such. I would say this is definitely one of the better horror films that I have seen so far this year. Not that I have actually seen it in a lot of films this year, unfortunately, because of everything going on in the world. It's more expensive to go to the theater now than ever. I can honestly say if you did go and see this movie, you would probably not be disappointed. It's just long enough to get the point across. It's good for conversation because you can kind of theorize and question and maybe kind of come up with your own theories as to how, what, why, and where, and because that's what me and my friend did. We were guessing the whole entire time. So yeah, I would give it a nice 7 out of 10. Good film, excellently acted. I think I probably would have gave it an 8 if the freaking sound editing was not so freaking loud with that theater setup. So most likely I'd probably actually give it like an 8 out of 10. So it's a good horror film. Go and see it. I'm Master Vitae, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.